All right, what's up, guys? Igor's back. Joe here. So March 25th, 2020, 7:30 NBA trade deadline's officially done, and Kyle Lowry's still a Raptor. I'm a little bit surprised. I don't know if you are.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised in the sense that, considering the fact that Kyle's a free agent, he sold his house in Toronto. It looked like, a situation where maybe he, based off how the season's going, that he might be going to greener pastures. And I don't know if it was Masai that overplayed his hand. Maybe the market wasn't what was expected of it. The situation. We hear Miami, like they wanted, the Raptors wanted Tyler Hero. Miami wasn't going to give him, wasn't going to trade him. They wanted Duncan Robinson instead. Then you look at what Philly was willing to give in terms of it was Thibault was or the first round picks. Either way, I mean if Kyle resigns this offseason for a year, maybe it ends up like shouldering the blow. If he ends up leaving, you got nothing for a guy. Which at the end of the day, with all the other trades that they made, and we can go through the impact if Kyle was going to be the last piece of a chip that someone could use if he had gone into Miami or to Philly, and the merits of what Kyle Lowry brings to the table as a 35-year-old. And I think the Lakers were in there as well with they didn't want to give up Horton
Schroeder.
Sure. Again, I think at this point, I mean, we can argue back and forth that, I mean, who would be more valuable at this point, if it would be Schroeder or Lowry.
I would take Lowry for the year for sure.
Well, again, like I said, depending on how you look at it, I think Dennis is still a pretty good player. But like I said, I think the Raptors will probably regret not moving Lowry. But there's the whole nostalgia thing. He wants. A lot of people were breathing and exhaling. It did remind me back in the day where there was a similar situation that the Leafs wanted to trade Matt Sundin, and then Sundin said
Vancouver,
no. Sundin said no because he didn't want to be a rental player, so he blocked any moves. And then the next year, he ended up being a rental player and absolutely screwing the team and putting them back into rebuild.
Yeah.
So that actually was, again, I was a big Sundin fan there. That was a little bit of a punch to the gut a little bit, but most Raptor fans won't complain. The GROAT, the greatest Raptor of all time, and in the majority of people's eyes, not mine.
A new acronym that was.
A new acronym. He'll end up staying. Again, what are they right now? No Terrence Davis, no Thomas, Norm Powell gets shipped off. To me, the team is worse off. They're trying to even get into a play-in game. I don't believe with what they did though. Again, depending maybe the buyout market, who they can get in. They got
they have a few roster spots. I was going to say.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if any of the bigger name buyout candidates would want to go there considering what's going on. I mean, I think Drummond will have better options in terms of winning this year.
But I was hearing too, I was listening to a few, I think it was Bill Simmons talking about it, and he was saying something like Drummond wants to go somewhere where he's actually going to play and get stats so that his next contract will be lucrative. Now, if he goes to play for Brooklyn or he goes to play with the Lakers and AD comes back or LeBron's there, he might not get those stats. If he's coming to Toronto, you're losing Norm, who's averaging 16, 17 points a game. He can slide in there and at least probably get you 15 and 12, right?
Yeah, I mean, I said, and they definitely need a big man. That definitely wasn't addressed. I think Gary Trent Jr. Is what Norm was a few years ago when he was 22. So when I think he's got some potential, he can end up being a Norm
Similar
Powell.
player, yeah.
I mean, Rodney Hood has been passed around the league like a bag of chips. So I'm not a huge.
And tore his Achilles a few years ago.
I'm not a huge fan at the end of the day. But like I said,
some depth. He's probably better off than a few guys that we shipped out.
I mean, like I said, if you had told me that the Raptors would have, a couple of years ago would have dealt away Terrence Davis for a song, I think I would have been a little bit pissed about it. But considering what happened the last few years,
and the court case,
which he beat at the end of the day, they dismissed it. Which I don't know. At the end of the day, it wasn't a great day if you're a Raptor fan, and they're in purgatory. They're not going in a full-fledged rebuild, and they didn't get any better. So. I give it a C+. It's like, oh, down goes that, boom goes the dynamite on that one. Situation is a C+ maneuvers. Like, it's not anything that at the end of the day is gonna make the team much better. You might lose Norm with a player option. He ends up leaving. Maybe they didn't want to pay him. And again, a guy
you get a player back. You get two players back,
sure.
And then with so you get two second round picks for Terrence Davis. And you're getting 1 second round pick for Matt Thomas. So you get 3 seconds, which to be honest, they're probably going to end up trading those down the line anyways. Maybe they'll keep one of them. Other than that, what could the Raptors have done? Like, even with Kyle Lowry, the thing that I was thinking about is the trade market looked like it kind of dried up. You talked about this before we started about Oladipo and what he went for. And would you say that Oladipo had more trade value than Kyle going into the draft?
I don't think so, based on the fact that Oladipo, again, as you mentioned in a previous the show because there's Achilles injuries. He's been on
Quad.
on a quad injury.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's been on a few different situations. I mean, back before the injury, I would say that he was definitely on an upward trend.
Yeah.
In the last few years, I still, we talked about it. I think it was terrible asset management by the Houston Rockets. I thought, Oladipo was the main piece they got back for Harden, and considering what they with Avery Bradley, Olynyk, and some draft picks, they didn't even get Duncan Robinson. They didn't. If you look at, combine the trades and, the Harden trade with that, it ends up looking terrible. They didn't get any significant players, and they probably didn't get any significant picks because those will likely be low-end picks. So if you look at that trade, it was a horrendous deal. Could have gotten LeVert, could have got Jared Allen, could have gotten at least something that, LeVert at the end of the day, he's a player. He would have been again. You put Jared Allen with Christian Wood, they would have had a heck of a front court.
DeMarcus Cousins now gone. Obviously,
Yeah,
nobody's picked him up, right? And
that is kind of weird. I mean, it has been a while in that situation.
you got to
But
think he's not coming back.
Maybe they're looking at seeing who ends up in the buyout market and waiting it out. But again, there's with Kyle, the situation is if he leaves this summer, the Raptors get nothing, and maybe they do a sign and trade at the worst. Maybe they get something then with whoever picks him up. But right now, if the Raptors don't go on a bit of a run and even at least make the playoffs, I don't even know. Like, do you want to make the playoffs? Do you want to stick it out for a top 5, top 10 pick? I don't know what the situation. Right now, they played a great game against Denver, but like with so many losses and so many teams, Chicago got significantly better.
Chicago did get better. We can get to them in a second.
And so forth. But all in all, I'll never be, number one in the Kyle Lowry fan club. I don't hide the fact that I'm not as big a supporter as most people are, based mostly on the playoff failures. And I always thought that Kyle is an all-star level player, but he's a low-level all-star, a guy that can get you into the playoffs, but he's not a guy that's going to lead you to a ring as a number one guy, or even a number two, in my opinion, because that was already proven. I don't think he was number 2 when the Raptors won the championship. I think it took. Pascal's at a different level. I thought Fred got MVP vote. To me, Kyle was number 4. People will argue with me all they want on that. The stats will prove that. Pascal had some great games against Draymond. Fred had a great series, and Kawhi. Kawhi was obviously the catalyst. So at 35 years old, if they could have gotten two first-round picks for him, even if they were lower-end ones, I probably would have done it.
That's the thing, though. I don't think that they had those options. I think that they would have traded, because I don't think any really first-round picks went out today, for the most part. At least not for one player getting traded out.
But again, if Philly had offered 2 first-round picks, I probably would have. And maybe if it was like, let's say, Ty Bull and 2 first-round picks, I probably would have taken. But then again, you also need salaries to go back and match, because Philly's pretty up against the cap too, so you have to send players out.
So we'll go through the trades because I just want to talk about that, and I don't think that, like I said, other than Aaron Gordon ended up getting a first, Vucevic ended up getting, I think, a few firsts, but those are guys that are all-stars this year, right? Well, not Gordon, but Vucevic, an all-star this year.
Ronaldo absolutely just blew up the whole team.
Which, you think that was surprising?
Well, here's the thing, and it's we go back to those situations where where we were talking about the Raptors, at the first couple of years when we started doing this show. Are you going to be good enough to just compete, or you just blow it up and start anew? And Orlando got to a point where their current core wasn't getting it done.
A lot of injuries. Isaac out, Fultz out.
Yeah, but they did well again, and they just had to blow up the whole thing. I think Vucevic is a nice player. Again, probably the same kind of situation as a Kyle Lowry situation.
An all-star, but not going to win.
An all-star, but he's not going to be a guy that's as a first or second option that'll likely win you a championship.
Yeah.
So they decided to max out the situation. Got some, Wendell Carter, Otto Porter, some guys that are going to
2 first-round picks.
2 first-round picks, and again, like I said, nothing guaranteed out of Chicago. Those first-round picks could be pretty valuable depending on how things go. Again, they could be top 10, top 15 picks depending on how the Bulls end up. Again, they have marketing. They have. Again, the Bulls now with the picks
didn't end up going either. He stayed put.
And again, now they definitely have some depth. They'll likely, I would say they probably make the playoffs rather easily. But again, Orlando decided, hey, we're middling. We're not gonna get where we're getting. Or Vucevic is gonna want a payday. Let's start fresh and see what we can do.
And they might guarantee themselves a top 10 pick this year too, right?
And like I said, and that's what it's a scorched earth situation where the core's not getting it done. And whether it's injuries or whatever it may be, start anew and go for it. And we'll see what happens. If they luck out in the draft and take it from there.
So they traded their top 2 players. So Vucevic went, like we said, for Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., who coming off a max. This is going to be the end of his deal. Remember that max deal he signed with the Wizards, which was crazy. And then they trade their second best player in Aaron Gordon. So Aaron Gordon, Gary Clark. for Gary Harris, a guy who started his career really well. I think he got an extension about $65 million. He was averaging, I want to say 15, 16. I had him in fantasy whenever that was a few years ago. Fell off the face of the earth. Now he's like a defensive
I think
two.
I think that's a good upgrade for Denver though.
For Denver, it's
It's
amazing.
good. Again,
You replaced Jeremy Grant, right?
Yeah, I think Jokic was needing some help
In the front court, yeah.
in the front court, and then that ends up getting again if he can stay healthy, that puts Denver in as a dangerous team up in the West if again Gordon can stay healthy.
They kept Bol, who looked pretty good in limited minutes. He's still young.
He's still young.
Yeah.
I don't know how that'll end up going, but yeah, they didn't trade away anything.
RJ Hampton,
Yeah.
a prospect, and a first-round pick in
I
2025.
think the fact that they were end up keeping guys like Michael Porter Jr. and stuff like that, and they weren't, you got to be patient with those guys. A couple people did get fooled on social media. I think a fake Woj
Fake Woj bomb.
ended up getting which again, if people actually knew the salary cap, they knew that trade could not have happened. It was Kyle Kuzma for Lowry and Watanabe. First and foremost, like the Lowry and Kuzma salaries wouldn't match. So that wouldn't make. I have no idea how you just throw in Watanabe in there, but it would have made it even worse. At least it would have been like pleasable if they had Schroeder in there because of salary.
Match something.
But yeah, I think the City TV picked it up, and a few other people picked it up, thinking it was legit, and they got.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, it was all over.
It was on the news.
Yeah, it was on news. Oh yeah, they put it on the social media page.
Oh wow.
They Doug Smith got it too.
Oh wow.
Be careful out there.
I think that when I was speaking with Zane, what kind of like was the telling sign for me that Kyle might not go was when George Hill went to the 76ers.
Yeah.
Now, George Hill, how many times has he been traded? I know that when he went to Cleveland, when LeBron was still there, you said some blasphemous things about George Hill, saying he was over the hill. But you know what?
Over the hill or just
Over the hill. but you look back now, and he's been on a few teams since. With
he's
Indiana.
a serviceable player.
He's still, I don't know about a starter, but like he's probably going to start for them because they have nobody. The 76ers at point guard. And he's a guy that's, I think he led the league in 3-point shooting last year. So
like I said, he's a
poor man's Kyle.
player. He's a serviceable player. He's they got Shake Milton. Ben can't shoot. So and a lot of people still have. I know you're very high, and they're starting to. And again, I don't know what this whole situation with KD. It seems like a little sketchy injury, but sketchy. I think Harden's out with some neck thing, and it's starting.
He's resting out now. Yeah.
And then Kyrie, congratulations, he's got a
kid.
Yeah. So that was looking like a little suspect too. All of a sudden, 3 games out. But anyways, he has the kid.
Yeah,
It is what it is. And again, a lot of people still have Philly coming out because of the the lack of cohesion. Oh yeah, if you look at most pundits still have them coming out. I think a lot of people are very reactionary to certain things, and like I said, I think we talk about the whole Brooklyn situation. We'll see when games tighten up.
When the chips fall.
And again, Blake dunking the other day was actually kind of hilarious because maybe he was pulling off shenanigans that he couldn't do it anymore and he did it. So
a squeeze.
We'll see. Yeah, this is the whole the fake thing. I don't want to dunk anymore, Vince Carter style thing. But again, we'll see how it happens. I think it's a good move for Philly. They didn't give up anything that was significant, and there's some interesting maneuvers. I think the Orlando thing was unprecedented. I don't think anyone thought that Vucevic was going to go. I like the Rondo deal for.
I was gonna say, so Rondo goes for Sweet Lou and 2 future second-round picks.
But we have to, we gotta, there's an elephant in the room here.
Address it.
Well, we gotta talk about Lou ending up going back to Magic City, Lemon Pepper Lou.
Yep.
Back to
for the chicken wings, just for the chicken wings.
Chicken wings. But here's the interesting situation now. Everyone was saying, hey, the Clippers need that point guard, and the fact that Atlanta got rid of Rondo so quickly this year, I had heard that he was having trouble getting minutes. He wasn't very consistent. Does this trade make the Clippers better? It does if Rondo was what he was last year with the Lakers in the playoffs. They could pull playoff Rondo. You're gonna miss that scoring off the bench from Lou Williams as much as and that's their unit that they had so well with both Montrez and Lou. Yeah. That's completely gone. So now you're relying on guys like Reggie Jackson and those type of guys to get in there. Maybe I don't know. I guess Pat Bev still starts. I don't know how that's gonna fly.
I think Rondo's probably gonna start, and then Beverly will come off the bench with Marcus Morris, right?
They
paid Marcus Morris a lot of money.
And we'll see how that goes. And again, it's another combustible personality in there because Rondo's hard to deal with at times. So we'll see what he has left in the tank. I
think Kawhi's gonna be really happy with this deal.
It's a gamble. Well, like I said,
is it a gamble?
It is because if you're getting the Rondo that we're seeing this year,
he hasn't really played this year, and I feel like Atlanta's been a bomb themselves with everybody and the trade situation. Collins, another guy that stayed put. He probably wasn't going to go anyways. He's going to be restricted.
Yeah, because they're bad. They're trying to hit the playoff. They're trying to be in the playoffs, so they're trying to get in there.
And ever since they fired their coach, they've been a lot better too.
I mean, I think McMillan's been like 8 or 9-0. They've been on a heck of a run.
Yeah.
All in all, like I said, it's interesting that again for the Hawks. I think it's a good trade because you got Lou off as long as he can stay off Magic City and and then it's keep himself in
his mask on?
in a coordinate. Well, and keep his mask on. I don't know. I think the majority of them already got the thing. But again, if you're spending all your time up at the strip club, it's still a problem either way. But I don't know how much you're really putting into the basketball games. Lemon pepper Lou. Like I said, I like that trade from Atlanta. I think it gives them some more bench scoring. I think if they're not playing Rondo, they got out of another year of his deal because they're paying him for 2 years. And I guess for the Clippers, it's a hope that Rondo.
A real point guard.
Because again, he's also 35 years old, or 34, 35. He's pretty old.
He's got to be 35.
Yeah, so he's another guy really on his last legs at that level. We'll see what happens. It could end up blowing up in the Clippers' face because I think they miss loose scoring, but. If it weren't,
he wasn't having the same season he was even last year.
Wasn't
his
happy.
Numbers have dropped.
He wasn't happy. At the end of the day, I think the whole Kawhi Paul George thing didn't sit well because Lou was always a locker room leader. Him and Trez, you can tell that they were probably on borrowed time over there, and yeah, maybe that helps the locker room and things of that nature and so forth. But time will tell. I think it could potentially work out because they needed a pass first point guard to control.
They needed someone to actually just dribble the ball and create offense as opposed to like.
All depends on those injuries and all that other stuff. If he's there, it's a significantly good move.
Does it make playoff P better? Coffee P?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you start shooting shots off the back of it, no one's gonna help you if you start doing that. Like, I don't know. Like,
can you get him some more?
And the interesting thing is, if they do bomb in the playoffs, those guys like.
Kawhi's got
to play out as a player option. He can legitimately leave if he wants. I don't think he will. He just buy a new place out there and stuff like that.
Maybe switch sides for the Lakers.
I don't think so. At the end of the day, well, that would be.
Would that put a smile on your face?
I don't think it would put a smile on my face at the end of the day. I think that would be one of the most treasonous things. Can you imagine like Clipper Day, can you imagine if you just swapped teams? I mean, Kobe almost did it that one time. Remember? Yeah. He threatened. He was literally threatening.
Those were dark days for the Lakers.
Those were dark days for the Lakers. Like Kobe was literally threatening to go to the Clippers.
And he wanted to. Yeah.
I don't think that Kawhi would do that. I think, like I said, I mean, LeBron's not going to play forever. At the end of the day, maybe a couple more years, but.
Decline the option or don't pay Schroeder.
I think Anthony Davis will still be the star. Will still be the star of the team, and I don't know. I can't see that happening. That would be one of the most talking about Benedict Arnold maneuvers.
Plot twist.
That would be worse than what Durant did to OKC and going to because literally you're just swapping. Jerseys in the same city.
Harold did it, just not the same kind of level, but Harold just did it, right?
Harold did it, but at the end of the day, Harold's not he's a role player. He's not a star level guy. At the end of the day, he's a 6-man level guy. But if you're legitimately the face of a franchise and you turn on him like that,
Steve Ballmer would have
that would be like Austin Matthews going to play for the Montreal Canadiens and just ditching the Leafs. He'd be booed out. He'd be booed out of the freaking city every time he would come out here.
Okay, so other trades here we'll go through. Tice ended up leaving Boston, which I found a little bit surprising. It seemed like they really liked him. They had him forever, and I don't really know what he was doing. So they traded him. So the Bulls get Tice, Javonte Green, Troy Brown, and some money. The Celtics get Mo Wagner, Laker legend, Luke Cornett, Nick legend, and then the Wizards ended up getting Chandler Hutchison and Daniel Gafford. So Gafford's a big that can give.
So as he's been nicknamed the Time Lord.
Robert Williams.
Robert Williams. I'm a big fan because again he's been killing it from all my fantasy teams for the most part. I love that move just simply based off of that because he becomes more time, more valuable. It was literally they had too many there with Tristan Thompson as well.
Grant Williams too.
There were a lot of talk that Tristan wasn't very liked in that locker room, but I'm surprised that they got rid of Tice because Tice was starting it, but again they've underachieved, so maybe they decided that they needed to go in a different direction, and there was talk that even Marcus Smart was on the
table, yeah.
which was a surprising thing to me. But they're like the 8th seed right now. They've severely underachieved.
Big time. I'd say that they're more disappointing than the Raptors because for the most part, I know Jaylen Brown's played all year, and I was arguing with a buddy that I think that he's slowly entering maybe like a top 20 player in the league. He was an all-star this year, two-way player. And then I was going to say the Celtics ended up also getting, drawing a blank right now. Fournier for a second from the Magic,
Yeah.
right? So they addressed a few needs there. So they
Sure.
got another big, and then they get a 6-man that could go off for 20 in a game, right?
Sure, and they were counting a lot on guys like Pritchard and young guys that they were and
Asking too much too
asking
soon.
too much too soon on that second unit, and they've had issues with their depth now. Like I said, it's an interesting move dealing Tyson. That I don't know how much Wagner's gonna play. I mean, like I said, I'm assuming that the starting role probably had to go to Tristan or now to the good old Time Lord. I'm hoping it's Robert.
Yeah, I think he's gonna start. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Tatum ended up with COVID. Kemba's been injured for a good time. Marcus Smart missed like a bunch of weeks, so they really haven't had time to really get together. But they're one of the teams that during this whole shortened COVID season, they haven't been that great. I still think they'll be a threat when they get their stuff together, but we'll see how long it takes. There's a lot of problems going on. Like I'm not even sure the Lakers make the playoffs, depending on how long LeBron's been out. They've been terrible ever since AD and LeBron. Like you see how bad those guys are. Relying on Schroeder and Kyle Kuzma for offense isn't exactly. So that's going to be an interesting situation. Like, is LeBron going to get back in time enough to save them from missing the playoffs or not? I mean, last time he rushed back, they didn't end up doing much because he probably rushed back a little too soon.
The year they missed the playoffs.
They were very similar circumstances. They were fourth, and then afterwards, that was during the Christmas game, I think he got injured. And then they tanked out of there and they ended up finishing in 10th or 11th.
And then they traded for AD that summer.
Yeah, and then AD, as you were saying, you don't know when he's going to be back. The Lakers were real quiet; they didn't do anything. A little bit surprised, but that buyout market. And
I was really surprised that they didn't go.
Aldridge didn't even get traded. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I thought that they had bought him out already, but apparently they haven't. They're going to buy him out.
Well,
that's the only option.
That was probably what they were hoping that you get some.
And I think that's really been the theme of this trade deadline. Is just that the value for guys. We talked about this before. The year that Mozgov was going for two first-round picks, teams were very reluctant to trade first-round picks unless you literally gave up an all-star.
Well, we also have to deal with the fact that because of the whole COVID situation, that a lot of teams are a little bit more cash strapped than they usually probably would be in some senses. So they probably value the picks more because they know it's going to be cheaper contracts. And
there's a lot of parity too, right?
Yeah, and a lot of teams, like I said, they're losing money because there's no fans, and they might be bleeding money a little bit. They might not want to take on a big contract, not knowing what the situations are going to be. So, really depends on how you look at it. I think the draft picks have become a little bit more value because it's cost controlled, potentially good young players, and again, you can't just buy things out in free agency because, and again, like I said, a lot of the upcoming classes aren't all that great. All of the better players are
this year is supposed to be a really good draft.
Well, it was supposed to be. I'm talking more the free agent class. Well, they guys like you're supposed to be guys like Giannis and things like that. That's not happening anymore. All re-signed. So, it should be an interesting situation. But I think that the draft picks are definitely getting more valued because of what's going on in the world right now with the pandemic and just cheaper, younger players. Simple as that, really.
Who would you say was the best player traded today?
Vucevic.
Yeah, ahead of Gordon, Oladipo.
Yeah. Vucevic because he's still young. He's Gordon hasn't hit his peak yet. I don't know if he ever will, to be honest with you. We thought Oladipo probably would have said that a couple of years ago, but the way that he's gone with the injuries, unfortunately. But Vucevic was definitely because it's a game-changing maneuver for Chicago because adding another All-Star to that lineup. I'm not gonna say that they're favorites or anything like that, but
you think they were the biggest winners of the day?
I mean, there was talk that they wanted Lonzo pretty bad, and now not because they're so cash strapped, they can't do that. So I think they were because they were the team that probably got the biggest significant upgrade in terms of their roster. I mean, looking at that situation, when you acquire a guy that's been a multiple-time All-Star, and you don't give away. I mean, depending on what you think of Wendell Carter. You didn't give away a massive amount of two first rounders, depending on how.
And that might hurt, right?
It might, depending on how they do, but he's giving them a chance to compete. I think they were probably the ones that got the best situation. I think actually, and I also will say that Miami got Oladipo for a song. So you add Oladipo to that lineup where it's a little bit interesting because now I guess you don't play Nunn or Dragic, depending on how the injury is. Because Oladipo would probably start, I would assume.
I think you start him at the 2.
Start him at the 2, and maybe Dragic at the point.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then I guess you have Jimmy at the shooting
Jimmy
floor.
At the 3, Bam. I don't know if they're starting at the 5 because Myers Leonard's obviously got waived today. Okay, so here's another question: is Myers Leonard ever going to play an NBA game again?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think he was a guy that was gonna be like highly sought in the first place.
No, but he would have been in the league another 5 years.
And yes,
Just as a 3-point shooter.
The slur thing was, again, I didn't see the actual clip of the gaming situation that would happen, but I heard of it. And at the end of the day, when you're a guy that's like truthfully probably like barely hanging on in the league as
He's starting for Miami. He played 10, 15 minutes a game, but
at the end of the day, when you do stuff like that, and and you try to apologize and so on, but like they didn't even waste time and they didn't get rid. But again, he's starting for Miami, but it's mostly because Miami doesn't really have anybody. How many teams would Myers Leonard really start for that maybe the Raptors, I guess, but because they stink. Well, I still actually I would not start him over Boucher. And Baines this year's been terrible, but he's a better player than Leonard is. I don't. Potentially, probably down the line, somebody will sign him to a 10-day or something that might just use him.
10-day, wow.
A 10-day. Well, again, like I said, some guys that's what ends up being the situation, right? I mean, I remember during Miami's run last year, he was a spot guy that would be a DNP sometimes.
They just extended him at the beginning of the year. I believe they gave him an extra year on his contract.
But again, like I said, to me he's on one of those guys like JaVale McGee, who also got traded today. Those guys seem to be very.
But he's still in the league, right?
They're in the league, but they're very like disposable assets. Where you might not even remember that they're out of the league if you're not really paying attention for the most.
Well, like Dwight was for a bit too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think Myers Leonard plays another NBA game?
I'm gonna say it's a tough one.
I'm leaning towards no.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that at the end of the
which
day,
is wild.
Which is because at the end of the day, I don't think he's worth the headache that you have to deal with from the communities based off the type of level of player that he is. If he was a much skilled player, like again, it isn't the Kareem Hunt situation or anything like that.
Terrence Davis made it in the league, and I think that beating a woman, which is what he's accused of, is worse, isn't it?
It is, but in the sense of the fact that we also have to put it into a situation where. Again, at that point, it's an accusation. Like it's.
I thought you said that you saw even pictures online of the person's face.
No,
I thought there was pictures released.
They were supposedly there were some messages or something like that. I don't think I saw any pictures. At least I'm not aware of that. It was
either way, point is Terrence Davis is still in the league.
Which at the end of the day, I don't know what happened. The charges were dropped. You can make. I'm not condoning.
Ray Rice's wife dropped charges too, right?
Yeah, but there was video evidence of that, and he never played in the league either.
Exactly.
That one was a completely different story. Yeah, and again, remember the NFL suspended him for a couple of games. He was back, and only after that Mike Tyson cold cocking in the elevator that we saw, where he dragged your body out of there. Mike Tyson there.
That was a bad video.
That was absolutely
disturbing.
That was massively disturbing. And the disturbing part is that she still ended up with him at the end of the day. And
she dropped the charges.
Well, there you go, and that's what I'm talking about. Like. It's toxic stuff, and I'm not condoning that whatsoever. But I'm also not condoning if a guy's gonna Mike Tyson you like that you end up staying with him, that he's sorry. When someone does something like that to you, where he clocks you the next week,
you want to talk about toxic on both sides,
you got
right?
Problems. So again, Terrence Davis too. Again, Terrence Davis is absolutely ruined. Again, he was a guy that was on the the rookie
second team.
Yeah, rookie second team. He was on that. I believe he was on that young Rising Stars game. So if to give that guy away for two second rounders is a song, but he had absolutely fallen out of
Knicks rotation.
And actually, we're getting to that.
We need to talk about. Okay, go ahead.
We need to get to that. Like, out of all the people on the Raptors situation, I never would have thought that Pascal Siakam would be the one that tries to clock Nick Nurse. It gave me Vince Carter, Sam Mitchell vibes when he threw him over the table. And I'm like, you know what? As a point to it, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. And the reason that I don't hate it because the passion and the competitiveness that I think Pascal comes off as a guy that's passive, very lackluster and bad. The fact that he wanted to throw hands with Nick Nurse, it kind of makes it seem that like he's getting to a point where he's again, and he's had some problems.
He's been hearing some cheap chirping too, right? He's been benched. He had to play off last year, which was bad. They suspended him. He's been fine.
And maybe again, that could be one of those situations where a guy finally got paid and it maybe got to his head a little bit. It's happened again. I remember I told you when I first met Blake. Blake seemed like a kid. And you told me that Blake did the stuff that he would do later on in his career. I would have said you were absolutely crazy. He was the most humble kid. And again, and I don't know what happened and what was said. The fact that Pascal wanted to smoke Nurse and it made it a public thing, right?
Nick Nurse acknowledged it.
Yeah, that he wanted to smoke Nick Nurse, and I don't know what the situation was. But again, maybe that's a little kick in the ass that they needed. I don't
It's
know.
like when the
Certainly.
coach gets ejected to
Yeah,
rile
man,
up
I
the
remember,
team.
like,
Put a fire under his
you
ass.
could tell that, like, and the funny thing is, like, Nick doesn't come off that way that much. Sam Mitchell came off that way.
Oh,
Sam
yeah.
Mitchell's a guy that you could tell that
Very
if he was pissed at
confrontational.
you, he was very confrontational. I remember that one time with our I think it was Rob, our fellow, former sports in that situation. Rob was at a game. He asked Sam some weird question about Andrea Bargnani, and Rob ended up being in one of those TSN top 10 clips because
No
he got
way.
hit with a crazy
Hop-
he got hit with a response. He I think he said something about Bargnani, and Sam got so mad at him for asking the question that he got out the stats, and he gave him some kind of really bad response. I have to go back and look at exactly what he said, but I was pretty sure it was about Bargnani. And he absolutely cooked Rob, and I think Rob was a junior guy at the time. He had barely been in there. Just got in, and then Sam actually absolutely roasted him because he asked some kind of question about. I think it was because of the stats, and then Sam went through the stats, and then it just went crazy on him. And it happens.
It would have been nice if it was like a Dennis Green kind of.
It happened with me with Terry Francona one time. I asked a dumb question, and Terry Francona like absolutely laid into me during the conference. It happens. Sometimes you think it's the way it comes off in your head. Sometimes you're thinking it's a good way to answer.
Well, that was like yesterday when Kyle got at, like they were saying, "Oh, tomorrow's trade deadline." One of the reporters said, "Good luck," and Kyle's like, "Good luck."
Yeah,
so what do you mean, good luck? He's like, "Oh, sorry."
But here's the thing: it's funny, and I've seen a lot of it lately. I don't know, like what it is these days, but it's becoming very testy between guys and reporters, more so than I've ever seen it before. I've seen reporters like literally tell guys like, "Are you like the Buffalo?" I don't know if you've been seeing that. The Sabres have been so bad this year.
Yeah.
The reporters are literally like, "Aren't you guys embarrassed the way you guys?"
Yeah,
are
I saw that one with the coach. Yeah,
the coach and like Sam
and a few of
Reinhart,
the players. Yes,
like they're not pulling any punches. And then who was it earlier this year that asked well, Steve Simmons had all those issues with Austin, but there was another situation where it was Voracek on the Flyers where a guy literally was like,
we lost 9-0. That one?
No, it was literally like he was doing some, like he had read an article about that I was just trashing Voracek, and then the guy came on the mic and then Voracek's like, "Well, I don't really give a crap what you say. You're a piece of crap anyways," and like I don't even want to answer your question because you're just such a piece of crap. And it was. And again, to me, again, he was bad mouthing Voracek for something that he did, and you think that players don't read that? They read that. They'll never admit it, but they know which guys are bad mouthing him and which guys are not. And then the things come up, but it makes things much more interesting. But the media has been a lot more forthcoming. I don't know if people are just irritated with
something. Well, social media, everybody's sensitive these days and everything.
Well,
they just say you don't want to answer.
It provides some good
but it's some good quotes. Yeah,
it's some good
quotes. One of those low mistake coach. I'm a man. I'm 40. Come on, dude. That was
from a while ago. But yeah, something like it's definitely getting into situations where guys are definitely crossing more lines these days, which makes it interesting for sure.
So the Heat also got Bjelica from the Kings for Harkless and Silva. Not a bad pickup. They did a little bit of shuffling. The Heat got better today.
I think they did, yeah.
And I think the Nuggets also got pretty good too, just from the Aaron Gordon signing. Even though he's not, I know that he's probably going to average, or at least he was averaging around 20. He's there for defense too.
To me, Miami took a big step in their situation where they will be a bit. They were going to be a problem. I think now they're there. If everyone's going to stay healthy, they're going to be a bigger problem. They just, to me, they've ascended a little bit higher than Boston. I will probably rank them 3.
They have a lot more depth than Boston.
Yeah, I would probably rank them 3 with Jimmy, and if everyone stays healthy.
Jimmy, Bam, Tyler Hero's still there.
Yeah, and like I said, and again, I think if Oladipo ends up being healthy and like producing what he can do, they're going to be a problem.
Dragic was really good before he got hurt last year.
Remember, depending on what you think of it, they maybe, I don't know, Milwaukee. Would I take them over Milwaukee? I think I probably would. With
this year, I don't think I would.
With the Oladipo situation, I just might if Oladipo meshes well, but we'll see how that pans out. But I think with Jimmy, and if they do what they did last year, they could be a significant problem.
And then Celtics playoff legend from last year, Brad Wanamaker, who the Raptors fans know, he was pretty good in the playoffs last year. Went to the Golden State, didn't do much for them really all year. He went to the Hornets for cash, just because they need another guard because LaMelo went down. I think that the Celtics would probably take him back if they could. They just didn't sign him because they didn't have the money to. But that's a guy that got away. JJ Redick and Nicolo Melli, two shooters from Pelicans, went to the Mavs.
Right, just trying to keep that playoff streak alive.
Well, last year they didn't make it, but
Yeah.
that's not a good pickup for the Mavs, right? They sent James Johnson, another Raptors legend, Wes Iwundu, the second round pick.
Jiu-jitsu legend as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Redick at the end of the day
They weren't giving him minutes.
He basically takes up the spot of what Seth Curry did for the Mavericks last year. Was a spot up shooter and something that Luka needs and gives them a better opportunity there. Again, they've been another team that hasn't been great. They've underperformed.
So few teams have though, right?
Yeah, they've
like, look, how
underperformed.
many?
Like again, there's teams that I think the Knicks have surprised a lot of people that they're still significant.
But even the Knicks, just above 500,
Still
I want to say.
but in the playoffs, probably not a lot
They're
of
gonna
people.
make it. Julius Randle's been playing out of his mind.
Spike Lee's back. James Dolan is still kicking guys out of the
Patrick
crowd.
Ewing Jr. got ID'd
Well, I mean, the thing is, and again, I still think he's the worst owner in sports.
for sure.
But like to me, if a guy wears a Ban Dolan T-shirt and you kick him out of the arena, that's a problem.
Who's
That happened. That was there was literally a fan. He had a Ban Dolan T-shirt.
Van Dolan.
And at the end of the day, I guess the security guys are like, hey, take off that shirt or we're kicking you out of here.
They've done that to a few people.
And to me, because at the end of the
there
day,
was the Oakley thing.
it's a situation where the guy can't take any criticism for doing a crap job.
Like a
Let's be
child.
honest, he's like a petulant bully, like a child. And to me, like it should be illegal to do that. Like if you're, I don't care if you're the owner of the team. Like the fans have a right.
Free speech,
as-
right?
yeah,
In
free
America.
speech. Yeah, as long as it's not something that's
Offensive.
swearing or
Yeah.
offensive or like it's somewhere around, you should have absolutely the right to do that. The fact that you get kicked out for a T-shirt like that is absolutely
Just a
distasteful.
passionate fan, right?
It's a passionate fan that's basically saying that Dolan's been garbage for years,
Which is
and-
a fact.
Which is a fact, and Dolan doesn't want to agree with it. It's the fact that Spike Lee's now finally back. I think he was there 3 days ago. Again, he was treated so badly that one incident last year, he was almost gone for an entire year.
Spike?
Spike, yeah,
What happened last year?
they gave him some problems where he tried to get into an elevator, and he had taken that elevator for like years, and then they told him all of a sudden that's only for employees or something. Then he lost his mind. Because again, he was just because I guess Dolan told him, hey, you can't do that anymore. And again, Spike Lee.
That's the one guy that you don't like. He's their super fan.
But it's
without a doubt,
Dolan
right?
at the end of the day, right? So, yeah. But either way, like I said, some interesting moves all in all, and like I said, I still think the buyout market's gonna be a big indicator of how some of these teams do. But right now, man, it's to me it's still a crapshoot. I don't know with the injuries and stuff. I have no idea who's gonna come off out west and the East is I think gotten a little bit more interesting with some of the moves, but maybe Brooklyn, maybe Philly, maybe there's still again once the playoffs. And again, are you concerned about the Durant injury?
It's getting
It's
a little
been-
bit
it's been a while.
suspicious now,
A
right?
while, right?
And the thing is, they're called it a hamstring injury. So he tore his Achilles, then he had a calf problem. Now it's his hamstring, so he's going all up like the back part of his leg now.
Okay.
And I don't like. It's really weird because like
At least a month.
every game he's played, it's not like he hasn't looked good. Like every game he comes in, he scores 25. I haven't seen
So
him.
is this load management?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe, but even so, it's been too long to be load management. At least with load management, you play a few games, you sit out. He hasn't played. It seems like it's been at least a month.
I think it's been at least a month. They can call me only the All-Star break. It probably has been at least a month.
James is playing every game, and I want to talk about that because James Harden, big fan used to be as a basketball player. What he's done off the court and sometimes on the court has made me kind of question that. A lot of people, but looking at the MVP race right now, which we can kind of talk about too. So LeBron goes down.
Embiid went down.
Embiid went down. Those were probably Embiid was probably his to go, right? And then Jokic as well.
Mhm.
So Jokic right now, just because he's the last man standing, which I was
Pretty
talking
much.
about, probably the guy to win MVP. But people just like forgot about James Harden. Like James Harden, two games ago, yesterday they lost to Utah. 2 days ago he was by himself because Kyrie had a child.
The kid, yeah.
I don't remember who they played. They smashed them. It looks like he's back to running the whole Houston offense where it's 40-point triple doubles. How is he not mentioned just due to the fact that he did the Rockets fiasco?
Exactly.
But numbers wise and the way he's playing, he's MVP this year.
He's been very good. Again, like I said,
He's been incredible.
that whole fiasco probably puts him again. I don't think the league would want to
Reward bad behavior.
a guy with bad behavior of what he did. It sends the wrong message. I will agree with you that as we say, so far the Brooklyn Nets have been again even without KD and Kyrie going on and off. James has pretty much solidified a good place there. And again, if they all remain healthy, and so forth, they will obviously be tough to beat in a 7-game series. They have enough talent. Defensively, we can still, still to me, still a bit of a problem. But, I mean, then it tightens up in the playoffs, but tough to again, guard 3 guys that are at that kind of level. So, again, I'm still, a little bit skeptical because, again, regular season.
You'll be skeptical until they raise the banner.
I won't be skeptical to raise the banner. I'll be skeptical until I see them play some playoff games on teams that are legitimately high end and they're playing tighter defense.
So they're going to win their first round matchup because they'll finish first or second, right? So in the second round, they'll end up playing someone legitimate, probably like
and that'll
Philly, Miami.
Yeah,
so then that matchup is when you'll kind of
that'll be my thing. And depending on how the first round, like if they put the Knicks and they absolutely romp over the Knicks or whoever ends up being that 8th spot, or
could be
the Raptors,
yeah.
who knows? Then I'll again, and then we'll see the situations. Until they haven't really played a ton together. There's only been a few games. So the one guy's injured, the other guy's injured. And again, Harden can do that now. We'll do the same thing when KD's there, when they have to share the ball. It'll be a different little situation. I still think that, again, like most first-year teams, just like LeBron in Miami, usually on the first year, it always ends up kind of rough. Kawhi, and then always ends up kind of rough. Just throwing guys together and then hoping that they have the chemistry to get things done.
So Kawhi in Toronto was the total opposite, right?
It was, but he also was in a situation where he joined a team that had been together for ages. And in the Clipper situation, a lot of them were there, but he was also another significant player, and the whole mentality of the team changed. When Kawhi got there, I don't think the Raptors' mentality changed. I think Kawhi added to the mentality, while the Clippers were a hard-working bunch of scruffs per se.
Prima donnas that came
in,
and
prima donnas completely changed
it.
So to me, that's the whole chemistry switch off on that. So again, in this situation so far, it's been good. I still need to see how it's done in the playoffs because again, a lot of teams are great in the regular season, but when it comes to crunch time, and heck, we've seen it. We've seen it literally in the city where a lot of teams are great in the regular season and then come to the playoffs, they fumble it all over the place. And again, reputations. All those guys, minus I guess KD, have reputations that when it comes to the playoffs and when they were the lone show or trying to beat it, that they've had issues. And again, they injury prone guys at times. KD again. So are you still giving them the favorites if KD's legitimately, let's say, out for the season?
I don't think he's going to be out for the season. But if they have 2 guys, no matter what the combination is, I still think that they're favorites in the East. Betting favorites, and I think they're betting favorites to win the title right now.
So even if it's no KD and you're good with Harden and Kyrie as getting out of the East with no KD whatsoever.
If I had to place a bet, I would say yes.
Interesting. I don't know.
And the only other team that I would put money on that I would actually feel good about would be Philly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now Milwaukee has a shot and Miami has a shot. Other than that, I don't see Boston is lurking. I guess in that 5th spot. I don't think the Knicks have enough firepower to do much.
Miami's going to be a problem. I think if Oladipo gets healthy, I think Miami's going to be a problem.
Well, Oladipo is what he is now, right? He's not going to, his squad's always going to be.
Right now, he's legitimately a 3 option. 3, maybe even a 4 option. That makes him a dangerous situation. Remember, you got Jimmy and Bam, and then again, you can legitimately say that, at the end of the day, Tyler Hero, I guess, hasn't been great this season.
But so we'll talk about Tyler Hero quick.
Dragic is usually a 3rd option.
Dragic as well. The thing with Dragic was he last year got hurt, obviously, with the playoffs, and that's, to be honest, if he was healthy, they could have, because every game except the finals where they got killed, which was well documented, they were in every game and won a bunch of the games. We went back and forth with that. That halftime score, I'll never forget it. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was a 30 point.
It was a 30 point.
It was stupid.
The Lakers just beat the brakes out of them.
So Tyler Hero was pretty much untouchable in all of the James Harden sweepstakes and everything that had happened. So if they would have threw him in this Kyle Lowry deal, it would have been really bad in hindsight because they were so reluctant to trade him.
It would have been a prisoner of the moment move that he's having a bad year and you get rid of a guy off of one bad year.
But he's in his 2nd year and there is still potential. His rookie season started off decent. It was above average for sure. He elevated in the playoffs because guys went down, and he had Jimmy Butler and Bam, who are Jimmy Butler's a perennial all-star, and Bam was great. Now this year, all of a sudden, it's the same thing as I feel what happened with Duncan Robinson this year. Tyler Hero's a little bit more skilled, but they're okay, we know you're going to shoot threes. We're just going to get in your face. You're not going to do much.
He's in a sophomore slump, no doubt.
Right, and now what I'm seeing is now they're going to get all these guys, and I feel now it's going to create some space because the same thing we talked about Pascal time and time again. It's Pascal's good, but if he's your number 1 guy and the team has a game plan to stop him, which happened in the playoffs last year, what's happening this year, we're seeing struggles. we're seeing $50,000 fines. And we're seeing talking garbage to coach Nick Nurse, right? So like this is, and I talked about this. I like it too. I like it because he's showing some resiliency and he's showing that he actually cares. But will the skill overcome the mouth?
Well, and that's the thing, and it's getting to a point where, and I never thought I'd be saying this, that it might be like in a year or two, it might have to be a decision between who gets, either you fire Nurse or do you trade Pascal, because it's starting to get a little. I would have never, in my wildest dreams, thought that this would be even a feasible scenario where one guy, where Siakam's become such a quote unquote malcontent out of nowhere, where now he's getting suspended and he's almost punching her. It goes to show you that at the end of the day, that might prove to be a situation where he either has to be moved or like the Raptors got to do a situation where they got to can Nick Nurse. Like, who would have thought, eh?
Okay, so I was talking with a friend. I was talking with a friend about Nick Nurse, and there was word that Nick Nurse has lost the locker room. Now, I think that is crazy. I still think that he's I don't even think it's cool. I think he's a top 10 coach in the league. I was arguing with a buddy about who's ahead of him. Who's really ahead of Nick Nurse? Like, so
again, like Kyle, I was never a huge Nick Nurse guy, and the fact of the matter is he almost cost them the championship in a couple of scenarios.
The timeout, yeah.
The timeout, and I was there for the timeout. That was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen in my life. They had all the momentum. You never do that. Even an amateurish coach I've criticized him over he had rotations where he keeps guys out there way too long. And then the game gets out of hand.
Doghouse stuff. Terrence Davis.
The issue is, and I'll still tell to this day, I think given the same sort of set of players, and just trade out DeMar for Kawhi Leonard. You saw what Dwayne Casey did to LeBron when he was the Mavs coach. He's a very good defensive coach. You give him a guy like Kawhi, I think their results would have been very similar.
You think they would have won a title?
And I'm a big fan. And again, all in all, I always loved Dwayne Casey.
I like Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey
too.
was a class act. I talked to the man a few times when I was still working at Sportsnet. A class act. Loved the man. He's a very nice guy. I think that at the end of the day, given the same set of players, and you trade out DeMar for Kawhi, the results would have been similar. And in fact, I think the Raptors might have been an even better defensive team because that was Casey's forte. While Nurse was more on the offensive end of things. I think Casey was limited. Remember, Casey was coach of the year, and then they fired him. Like he was no scrub.
It seems like that's a theme in the NBA. He was no
scrub.
Sam Mitchell was the same.
He got again. Let's call a spade a spade. He got fired because that guy and DeMar cost him his job. Let's be real. They stunk in the playoffs against
the Cavs swept them, right?
The Cavs swept them. Yeah, those memes with Kawhi with Kyle and DeMar on his show.
LeBron, you mean?
LeBron, sorry.
LeBronto.
LeBronto. And again, that's what ended up costing him his job. So at the end of the day, I think Nick Nurse is a good coach. I don't think he's. I think he did a solid job last year. Are we seeing some warts this year with what they're going through? Absolutely. Again, top 10 we can argue and so forth. To me,
he's an upper echelon coach. If he got fired, he'd get a job next season, right?
Well, based off him winning a championship, sure. At the end of the day, I can see how he could,
all of his assistants got jobs right away.
And that's true. That's fine. I mean, even the guy, it didn't make much sense at the second.
The Minnesota one was very fishy one.
Yeah, that was really fishy. But again, I give him credit. At the end of the day, he's done well for himself. I'll never be the Nick Nurse fan club. He won the championship, but he made a lot of bonehead maneuvers. Even in that situation, what was it that almost cost him Game 6? Was putting down. Danny Green was horrendous.
Oh, the dribbling when he turned it over.
And then he put Green in there for no apparent reason, and Green nearly gets a turnover and nearly costs him the game, and Steph misses the shot. Like, I would have got absolutely, imagine losing that series over some idiocy like that, and there's no reason that Green was terrible in that game. He couldn't hit it in the back of the
playoffs. He was most of the team was playoffs.
Well, like I said, it just some of the decisions absolutely made no sense.
What were his options? We're getting off topic, but anyways, point is that Nick Nurse and Pascal, who would have thought that we'd be talking about them a year after, both winning the championship a year and a half after that. Nick Nurse has, quote, possibly lost the locker room. But the guy's a championship coach. Granted, obviously without Kawhi, they wouldn't have won it for sure. But they also, I don't think they would have won the title if Casey was there. Who knows? A lot of things went right for them when they
I think I disagree in that fact because I think Casey, given a guy like Kawhi Leonard, and he saw what
Dwayne
he did.
Casey was one of the worst guys drawing a play at all times. Do you remember after
But
every
look-
time
but
it was an
look-
ISO, give
okay,
DeMar the ball every time?
But here's the thing. But based off again, but because you got DeMar as a guy, you got to play ISO with DeMar at the end of the day.
But there was no play calling. It was just give DeMar the ball and everybody get out of the way, right?
Okay, but again, and that could and then we
That's a
saw
big
that. Well, here's the thing: we saw that last year a lot with Nurse too. He would give last shots to ISOs on with Norm Powell. We saw guy. Why is Norm taking this shot? We questioned that a lot last year. It was very similar stuff. I remember. Yeah, there was literally like 10 seconds of let's give Norm a one-on-one. It's not like Nurse wasn't doing the same kind of thing. I'm telling you, you give him Kawhi Leonard for the year, and I think
Give me Kawhi Leonard for the year. Give you, right?
Like I said, to me, and again, there's certain things that people do that end up in my doghouse that I'll never forget. And to me, that timeout was absolutely unforgivable because I literally was there. It would have been a sell. I was literally working in the stands. At the end of the day, I that would have been at home. That would have been such a greater celebration, in my opinion. It being in the arena, that would have been one of my greatest sports moments of all time.
What game was that? It wasn't game
that was
6.
Game 5 when
Game
they were
5.
here. They
could have won in 5. They won in 6.
They could have won in 5. They were up, I think, 5 points with a minute and a half. For some odd reason, they like Kawhi's hitting every shot feasible. The Golden State Warriors have no timeouts. He decides to Nurse calls a timeout when they have all the momentum in the world to give the Warriors a breather because they were reeling, absolutely reeling. And even the Golden State Warriors praised Nurse after the game. That's how bad a stupid decision that was. That the Warriors were like, thank God Nurse did that because we were on fumes. They had us going. That was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the whole Norm Powell situation and why he was essentially traded.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously his stock went up towards the end of the year. Contract year started off really slow. Now, I did this comparison yesterday. I did end up posting the podcast, so we'll talk about it now. Baseball fans will remember Albert Pujols and the contract that he got when he left San Francisco, St. Louis and went to Anaheim. Ended up getting between 250 and like 275 million.
Something like that, yeah.
So St. Louis did not want to pay him that much money, even though he was still at that point, one of the greatest hitters of all time. But starting the fall,
he's getting older.
Fall, right?
Yeah.
Now, point I'm making here is so they didn't spend the $260 million, which is a hell of a lot of money in any sport. What they did is they allocated that money to fill out a roster. And they've been a pretty sustainable team ever since because now you look at the team who signed Pujols, the Angels, and they have nothing but terrible contracts there except Mike Trout, right? Yeah. Point is here, I'm going to go through the Raptors' salary for next year, and you can't pay Norm Powell. Why? Possibly bad signings that the Raptors have.
Okay.
Pascal Siakam next year, how much money is he making?
Probably like 35, 40 million.
33 next year, 35 the year after, 37 the year after that.
Yeah, they gave him a max deal.
An overpay, you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's hard to judge these, like for example, Pascal at this point last year, during the All-Star.
He made his first All-Star team.
He was a starter. He was a starter on the All-Star team. I think people forget that. People tend to, and this is another funny thing is that I don't want to go on a tangent about Kyle and all.
Kyle Lowry is a starter.
But
DeMar DeRozan a starter.
The fact of the matter is that Kyle for half a decade had horrendous playoffs, absolutely horrendous, and people tend to forget all that. Oh, who cares about those sweeps to the Wizards and all that other stuff? Yeah, he had some horrendous play. His stats were terrible sometimes in the playoffs. They would get swept by team. They got swept by John Wall, Wizards team back in the day.
Yeah, when Beal was the second year rookie.
They got absolutely annihilated. Nobody remembers that. It's all Kyle, last couple of years, greatness, all this baloney. And again, that's the problem that I have is people that are short-sighted with some players, but forget certain situations before. So when Kyle.
So is this a risk that you want to take with Pascal then?
But here's the situation. In normal times, now do I think that Pascal's been getting better? He's starting to average about 23 again. He's starting to get cooking again. And again, that's probably because he wants to beat up Nick Nurse. At the end of the Stone Cold Stunner. Anyways, fact of the matter is Pascal what we saw in the bubble? No. Is Pascal the all-star level starter that we saw probably it? No. It's somewhere probably in between. Where Pascal will probably end up being a similar situation to Kyle Lowry, where he'll likely get maybe a few more All-Star games, depending on who comes up, and he'll be a guy that can be counted on to be that kind of player.
Do you think that he'll have a better career than let's say, so he has, and I'll go through it. Question is, I guess, just to get to that while I pull up some of the numbers, do you think that he'll be a better Raptor? I know that Kyle has some longevity on him, but even then DeMar, because DeMar, I'd say, was a Raptor for maybe like 7 or 8 years.
Well, not if he keeps wanting to beat up Nick Nurse, he won't be at the end of the day. But And the fact of the matter is, again, if you're going by the situation, Pascal had that
Trajectory.
the run that he had in the championship. Again, nobody but Kawhi was good in the Philly series. Without Kawhi, they don't get past Philly. The other series, he was very good. He's the second option scoring for the most part between him and Fred. He was good. So again, was that the Pascal? Is that the Pascal? Obviously, there's going to be growing pains when, like you said, teams are game planning for him, trying to stop him. He's got to develop his game more. He's obviously been able to
a hard worker,
and now again he's starting to get a little bit more fire. So I think that'll end up being a decent salary because, like I said, you're paying Lowry like $30 million right now, and Pascal's still in his prime. So to me, he's still going to be. And again, it's a weird season, bubbles. No home games, no fans.
It might be the same next year for all we know, right? There's no guarantee the Raptors are playing at home next year.
I mean, there's no guarantee, but I would assume based off how things are going, there probably will be fans. Miami's already opening up things for vaccinated.
Not fans, even like the border stuff, right? Like I think a lot of people thought the Raptors would play. Like if you looked at last year in the bubble, I think a lot of people would say that they thought Raptors. Nobody thought they were having to move the team. Everybody would have said no fans, but they're going to be playing in Toronto. So next year, I don't think much is going to change. But getting back to the salary cap here. So this year, the Raptors, $130 million. Next year on the books, 102. Guys that are coming off. Alex Len, Stanley Johnson, McCaw. Guys on contract. Kyle Lowry.
Are they still paying Alex Len?
Well, this is just for this season.
Who's on the books? So even though they
traded,
him?
I guess.
Okay.
I think you still have to pay him if you release him. So Siakam, $33 million. Kyle, 0 for next year.
Okay.
Fred, 19.6. Okay.
Just a good
Norm Powell opted out. Was going to get 11.6.
Okay.
Aaron Baines, you got him next year for 7.3. He was here for 7 this year. Chris Boucher, $7 million next year.
That's a bargain considering what he's been playing at.
Patrick McCaw, free agent. OG Anunoby, 16, 17, 18, and then in 2024-25, a player option for $19 million, which you got to think he's going to opt out.
I'm at the end of the day, like with OG, it's been unfortunate with again injuries and other things that have gone down. I still think that again, I think it's probably another lost year for OG, unfortunately, because of what happened with injuries and then the COVID and all that other stuff. I've seen some flashes.
I was saying yesterday, I think you could make a case, maybe not the first, but maybe the second most valuable player on the team, based on what he does defensively for this team. Best defender has to be
best defender, and like I said, I think it's another unfortunate with the injury and then hitting the COVID again. He's been a start and stop. I thought that whole rest thing the other day was pretty weak, but
it might have just also been more that he wasn't really fit to play, right?
I mean, I guess so, but like it was. I mean, at 24, I don't know. Maintenance days at 24.
I mean, more of like the COVID stuff. Maybe they just wanted to give him another day off. Maybe
that's fair enough.
Not necessarily
with a losing streak, it was one of those make or break days. I think they could have used him for that game, but
the Houston one.
Well, yeah, those are two bad losses.
Cleveland and Houston.
When you're getting like smack talk by Colin Sexton, I watched the entire game. It wasn't pretty. Larry Nance
as well.
The biggest problem with the Raptors this year is I personally, and I'll say that I definitely didn't give Serge enough credit. I think Serge ended up being more of a difference maker than I thought for the most part. And Mark was on his last legs. Who knows if he...
Before the bubble, though, he was still decent.
He was still decent, but not having that kind of presence inside, and Baines just hasn't really worked out.
Doesn't have the size either.
Surge is definitely a miss in there, and you can see. And again, had they kept Serge and would have been Boucher off the bench.
If they kept Serge this year, I think they'd be a top 4 team.
They'd be a much better team. Again, Serge has been injured a little bit as well with the Clippers, but you definitely see that Serge was more valuable than maybe we gave him credit for. And again, he had a great championship run. He's another guy that had a great run in series. So yeah, it ended up biting the Raptors more. And again, I don't know if it was because they were trying to pay Gasol or what was going on in that situation, but it is what it is. And yeah, he's been definitely a miss for them inside.
So what I was alluding to is they're going to have $28 million coming off the books this year. What would you address? What position would you try and address if you're the Raptors?
Definitely the
interior. Don't make the same mistakes you did this year.
Well, the thing is, again, I would say you probably try to, I don't know what you could do with Baines if you can ship Baines off with a second rounder and somebody might take him, but
you can keep Baines as a backup, which is I think what he is, and I think there's been a lot of Baines slander. Some of it okay.
What do you do with Boucher?
5 and 4.
I guess. I think. Yeah, Chris is limited depending on the matchups in terms of because of his lack of bulk, But again, he's been
When he plays, like when
he's
he's
good.
hot, he's a 20 and 10 guy.
Yeah,
When he's hot,
when he's
right?
hot.
With the right matchup.
But I would definitely address the front court needs.
In a draft, because they took Malachi Flynn, and this is usually they hit on those picks, and he's still young.
Malachi Flynn's been an issue. His dad has been in the media a lot talking smack too. That might be another problem. I think Nick Nurse is just full of problems these days. You might need Kyle as a bodyguard is what I'm looking at these days. But yeah, I mean like he's again another guy that again to me was great in the preseason. They didn't give him many minutes, but we'll see what they do. It'll be interesting what they do if they are legitimately going to try to make the playoffs, or they're going to go more into the tank mode. I don't know. But by the moves today,
win, right?
by the moves today, I don't know. They definitely didn't get better today.
But they're not playing any of those guys anyways, except obviously
I
Powell, right?
I guess
but
maybe, you probably might throw. Does Rodney Hood get minutes? I'm assuming
he has
so.
to, yeah.
I'm assuming he gets minutes, and I guess
Gary Trent's going to help them.
yeah,
Like I know that.
help.
The thing with Powell too was he was really good for them offensively, but apparently Gary Trent's a good defender. And they're going to need some help on the wing, right? Especially with OG
and he can shoot.
He's a
he can
shooter.
shoot.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I saw some of the again. I haven't seen a ton of Trent Jr. in Portland. It looks like a lot of Blazers fans were not happy that he was part of that deal. So
when McCollum gets hurt every year, when he went down, he was like their only, because Carmelo obviously is hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
Trent went on fire. I picked him up in fantasy, as you probably know, and he carried the torch for me.
Well, there you go.
He was great, and then all of a sudden CJ came back as a respect thing. Obviously, he's getting paid a lot of money. Trent got reduced. He's averaging like 8 points since.
So maybe if it ends up that in that game, so maybe it's another great job by Masai getting another and taking him to school.
And
there,
Trent's looking for a contract as well, right?
I'm a little bit, and because you just mentioned, where does Norm fit on the Blazers?
6'10".
So back to the bench. Interesting. I wonder how that'll fit him.
Like you could start him because Carmelo. I see Carmelo's been coming off the bench recently, so you could go Dame, CJ, and Norm in a very small front line. But then you have Nurk, who's going to be coming back.
Fantasy team. You bet that someone keeps getting broken fingers.
He gets hurt every year. There's always a new injury with him, right? He broke the leg, which
you
was
put me
gruesome.
over the top. Shout out to the fantasy league, still in first.
Shout out to the Bosnian Beast.
Oh boy!
But yeah, I think that.
He goes back tomorrow. I think I'll be watching that very closely.
You'll be watching it very closely.
Still in the IL. I'm giving it a couple games.
I might have to pick him up.
Oh boy!
But yeah, that's what I was gonna get at with Norm. The reason why I was gonna say, and this comes to, like I said, with the pools thing, is you can't pay everybody when they're due. And guys these days, and I guess somewhat rightfully so, they're going to get a little bit hurt when you don't offer them the money. Like Pascal got a max. Mm-hmm. If you would have offered him $5 or $10 million less, he would have probably went to the highest bidder. Mm-hmm. And all these guys now, it's like Norm, and Norm said it yesterday, he was, I love this place, but I understand it's a business. And that's wise of him to say, because if there was no cap, of course they would want to.
So how much do you think Norm gets in free agency? Is he gonna get like?
I would think he's gonna get 12 to 15 a year.
Isn't that what he's already on though?
He's 10. I think he's 10 and 11 right now. Okay, so let's say he gets 15 a year.
Well, I mean,
Fred got 20 a season, 20, 21, 22 going up, right?
I would take Fred over Norm though. I mean, yeah.
But still, you think? I think that it's pretty safe to say that Norm's going to get $15 million.
Yeah, I would say that.
On probably a 4-year deal.
Probably going to get paid $15 million at least.
4 years, 60.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting up to 17 or 18. To be honest with you, depending on what the market is. And
you know he's going to go off to finish the season. Portland's going to make the playoffs. He has a playoff run.
At the end of the day, like I'll be supporting. Hoping that Norm does well in the playoffs.
I want to talk about that too. So we were texting about this earlier today, and I said, you know what, this one hurts a little bit, Norm. And I'm not like. Norm's not my.
He's a homegrown guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He succeeded quite well.
The thing with the Raptors, I think that a lot of people have really, I guess, fell in love with this team is there's a lot of homegrown guys. Sure. We saw Fred, Pascal, OG, Boucher, guys that played in the G League. And you saw you drafted these guys, you planted some seeds, they've come up, they've all been way better than people thought.
Absolutely.
And it hurts to see them go. And as a guy who works games and as a season seed holder, like you invest memories in these guys, and like
absolutely.
I watched Norm's highlights today of those dunks, especially in the finals.
When he was,
just so many, like the nostalgia and almost like chills watching that stuff. Like, I'm gonna miss that.
Sometimes you don't appreciate guys until they're really gone at the end of the day, and then that's the true thing. Like I told you, I threw it out to you. I had no shame admitting it when I was young, and I still remember to this day is that I got home, I got on my old desktop. I must have been like 15, 16 years old. And the first thing I used to go to tsn.ca was it's pretty much when the internet had just come out. And I look at it and I'm like, Vince Carter traded to Nets. And I still remember it like it was yesterday, where I saw
RJ.
that, and I'm like, I actually, because I loved Carter as a kid, and that's just the reality of it. I literally broke down and cried.
You didn't even see the return yet.
I hadn't even seen the return because I had just, I'm like, oh no, like, and I had never seen Carter live. I paid to go a couple games. Every time that I paid to go see a game, like later on, he was injured. I never got to see him live, and then I ended up paying a boatload of money when he came back on the Nets, and he got booed out of the building. But he ended up winning the game.
The overtime
The
game?
overtime, and then Jason Kidd
The reverse dunk? The Chappelle dunk? But he was literally on like
I don't know if it was I think it was the game where he ended up winning the game in overtime. And
on an alley-oop or something.
No, I think he hit a 3, and Jason Kidd jumped on top of him or something.
Yes.
He ended up winning the game, and man, people, I had never seen, and I think I paid like $200 for that. Like,
Pandemonium at the ACC.
I had never seen somebody get hated so vile. People were wearing diapers. People were throwing bibs at him. It was one of the, like, I'll never forget the hostility in that crowd, because I had never seen anything like it at any sporting event, at least that I had been to. They were literally out for blood. And again, to me, it just goes to show you how much people really liked Carter, and it was a heel turn. It was the ultimate heel turn. It was a Hulk Hogan heel turn in WCW.
Cheering to the back of the head of the Warrior.
You can't say that Carter was in love. When I saw guys in like wearing diapers and were just like babies, it was insane. And that's why I always tell people the effect that Carter had in this city, love him or hate him. And a lot of people will trash him, mostly because they've never forgiven him for what happened there. The older generation, they never, because he
did. It was a coward move. Like he quit on the team.
Management was also to blame for it. So I give him about 50-50, because management decided that,
But he really sunk his stock too. He really did it to himself.
But again, it's very similar to what Deshaun Watson's doing in football right now. Deshaun Watson wanted some input on who Houston was going to hire. They decided to tell him to screw off, and now he's not only wanting a trade, he's facing some allegations
which is very suspicious.
Which is very suspicious at the time. But again,
we'll talk about that before the draft.
But again, it's very similar, where Carter just got disgruntled. And again, all in all, I still to this day say that Vince was right, because Julius Erving would not have done as bad a job as Babcock would have, because Babcock did a horrendous job. So Vince, in hindsight, Vince was absolutely right. Between Rafael Rougeau and
Joey Graham.
and again, I like Charlie. Charlie went out of the league pretty quick. I don't think he won. I think he was almost second or something like that. That was a pretty good pick. With one of the picks that he got from Carter, but what he got from Carter it makes the James Harden package look like it was monumental. Eric Williams, and Alonzo Mourning didn't want to go in there, and then ended up getting like a first round pick. It was a horrendous package for a premier player. And again, but I'm gonna go off on a tangent on that just to bring back memories. But yes, it's gonna be tough to see Norm in a different jersey. It'll be weird when he comes back, but he'll get a standing ovation.
100%. If there's ever fans back when he comes back,
they'll give him the
tribute video.
He deserves it. He was a class act. He loved Canada. I wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up coming back at some point later in his career and finishing off as a Raptor. Once done, they gave him an opportunity. Again, same thing with Fred. I think as much as I thought Fred was going to leave, and maybe the market dried up, a lot of these guys do give credit to some of these who are taking a chance on.
They're loyal. Yeah.
They're loyal. Like Fred, you never know, and it's still a thing. And I go back to who knows what Kyle would have been had Masai actually pulled
the trigger on the Knicks.
He might not have gone to where he ended up doing. Because remember, at that time he was still considered a little bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
He had been on. It was his third team. He wasn't anywhere near an all-star level player. Coach killer. Like he was literally, if he had gone ruining it, he might have been a Raymond Felton. He might have been a Raymond Felton at the end of the day if I had gone bad for him.
Could have been
Raymond Felton.
He was a much higher pick. So I'll run through the East really quick. Update. So Philly 31-13, sitting in first. A game and a half up on Milwaukee, 29-14. Brooklyn still a game and a half back at 30-15. So those three teams are really jockeying for a position. Fourth place, Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, my man Terry Rozier.
22-21. Miami Heat, 22 wins, 22 losses.
But they're in the going back.
They're going to drop because it's so tight.
Well, LaMelo's down too, right? Yeah. So that'll be a big problem.
And they didn't make any moves today, which is a little bit surprising too. Miami Heat 22-22 at fifth. The Knicks 22-22 in sixth. Atlanta 22-22 in seventh. So they're all tied up. So you look at after that, it's Boston who's in eighth place at 21-23. Then you have the Pacers who are a lock for the playoffs every year, 20-23 and 9. The Bulls at 19 and 24,
See the
which is the last playing game.
See, the Pacers were interesting. 'Cause I thought the Pacers were going to do
Sellers?
what Orlando did today, which they were rumored to try. They were thinking of getting rid of Turner and Sabonis, and it was all over the place.
Yeah, which
even
was-
Brogdon was really on the block.
I heard
which
that
is
they were
surprising.
listening. Everything was really weird. But then I heard today that TJ Warren's now out for the year officially. So then they had a lot of guys to play with that were, 15 to 20 point guys. And then just to end it right here, the Raptors 11th place at 18 and 26. So out of a playing game, only 1.5 games out, but you look at Chicago are a lot better now, so you have to jump.
Where's Chicago's at?
Chicago only has one more win, but the Raptors have 2 more losses, so a game and a half behind them. So the Raptors have to jump. Chicago ahead of them is Indy, Boston, Atlanta. Only 4 games back there, but like I said, a lot of ground to make up and a lot of teams to jump.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, I don't, because I personally believe that at the end of the day, depending, I guess the playoffs are what, like a month and a month. Well, maybe I still don't know what the NBA. The NBA goes to a bubble again.
No, I don't think the players want. I think it would be wise
I guess
to, but I
everyone's
don't
getting
think they're going to.
vaccinated, and I guess maybe they won't do that. But like
I
I said,
don't think
it's
they
risky.
will. Do you think that the Raptors make the playoffs?
I think the Raptors likely probably get into a play-in
Do you
game.
think they get a playing game?
That's the best case scenario. I would have thought that they might get into a play-in game.
So
Because
Chicago
I think,
and Indy are the
I
teams they
think
have to jump.
I think there's certain teams that will, again, the Raptors aren't as bad as they've been, and they're due for a run when everybody gets healthy.
Which is now.
And again, at the end of the day, also I have to look at their schedule of who they play. I
It's
think
a tough schedule.
I think Charlotte will drop probably pretty significantly without LaMelo. I don't think that. Terry Rozier's been playing very well. PJ Washington, other guys like that.
Rams come
I think they'll drop without LaMelo. And again, I expect Boston to be better, but I expect the
They're not going to
Raptors.
jump Boston.
And I still don't fully trust the Knicks and a lot of those teams.
The Knicks are locked for the playoffs.
You think so?
Oh yeah, they're just too tough defensively.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're not. They're going to win enough games to stay. They're in like 6th place right now, I think.
Well, but six.
I know it's tight.
6 and 9 is like a game, right?
Yeah, but if I had to
I
place
had
a
a
bet,
couple of
if I had to
slides.
place a bet on the Knicks making the playoffs or the Raptors, whoever had the higher seed, I would take the Knicks. I think they've just been
Wow.
more stable all year. Not the better roster, but they're more stable.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. But like I said, well, again, they're still down the stretch. We'll see. I think the Raptors might make a play-in game as the last play-in team, probably.
Okay, I would say it's 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, again, those are the
My heart's telling me that. My heart's telling me about that. Okay, last thing, I just got a notification. So Masai Ujiri released a statement or something about the whole Kyle thing.
Oh boy.
Honestly, we didn't know which way it was going to go. We came in today looking at both possible ways. To be honest, I viewed him as someone that could go and put a stamp on what you're trying to do this year, which would be win a championship. I know if we went to those places, I know what he could have done. I've lived it. I've seen it. If I value him too much, hey, that's what I believe in. So pretty much saying that the offers were not what he wanted. He didn't want to send him over for a bag of, Snickers or whatever it was. So he kept him with the Raptors because he didn't want to get fleeced on the deal.
Well,
Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and I'm a big Masai guy, and I get the PR, the staying.
It's a good PR stunt.
It's a PR situation, and I completely get it. Remember, like, this is a guy that him and Kyle have obviously had problems over the years with the whole DeMar thing, and that was a big and like Kyle calling him out with Rachel Nichols on those interviews, and Kyle acting like a baby,
child. Yep.
a child with his best friend goes to play with somebody else. That was what the situation was, in my opinion. My imaginary friend, a 33-year-old doing that, like, ridiculous. But anyways, that's what I get. I can't stand it. So truthfully, it's nothing about Kyle. I can't stand
It's the
something.
person. It's the gimmick.
And it's also that he bothers me at sometimes, and he plays some great defensive ball. But to
As
me,
a player, we love him.
Kyle tends to take. To me, he's been just an irritating player to me because even watching some of the games of late, we'll be on a run and he'll just take some of the stupidest shots I've ever. Where
I'll pull up three in fast break.
I'll pull up 3 in a fast break where there's no one under the rim. Where he tends to be a run killer at times, and it irritates the crap out of me sometimes. But anyways,
So Masai was a good PR move.
let's be real here. When Masai had already dealt him when he first got here, he dealt him for a bag of chips. It was
a first round pick.
It was Iman Shumpert, who we know,
No, but at that point,
Tiana Taylor, and the Tiana Taylor fame.
A few steamy videos.
At that point, Iman Shumpert wasn't much in the league at that point.
Yeah, but he had a higher stock then than he did later, for
well,
sure.
again,
At that point,
as a younger guy there.
Yeah.
And again, yes, the Knicks first
Knicks
round
first.
picks. which again, we saw that could be Yakaparo, that could be all sorts of stuff. We saw what they were doing with those things. Anyways, he nearly dealt them for a bag of chips. So do I think that Masai all of a sudden got some revelation with Kyle Lowry? No. I think Masai got a mulligan on a trade thanks to James Dolan being an idiot. Like I said, I don't know what Kyle would have been in that system. He could have been the Kyle that we saw. He could have been Raymond Felton.
Nobody succeeds.
I think Raymond like Ty Lawson probably had some issues with his weight and his activities outside
off the court.
Well, we know. I mean, Ron's seen what Ty Lawson does outside the court. Shout out to Ron Davis, the podcast. So all in all, so we don't know the situation. So do I think that Masai is tongue in cheek with some of those comments? I think so. I think he gives Kyle credit that he respects his loyalties, respects what he's done, which I do as well. But I think had Tyler Hero been on the board or maybe even gotten Precious, the young Heat center, and along with a couple of first round picks, he probably would. Kyle would be back in his bags. And it is. He got probably undercut. Pat Riley's a shrewd guy. If they offered what they did for Oladipo, I would not have taken that trade. And I'm not even on the Kyle Lowry fan club. I would not have done that because to me it doesn't do anything. Olynyk's pretty much at the end of the line. Avery Bradley's a guy that doesn't do much for the Raptors. I think it was a second round picks for. You're not going to trade him for that. So if that was, and that's what the situation was, I don't do it. And again, depending on what Philly had offered as well. So I don't know how much of a market there really was for Kyle. And
the thing that Kyle that was so hard is making $30 million, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. But if Kyle gets dealt for a bag of chips, it's a
bad look. It
also looks at that maybe Kyle isn't as valuable as people actually think Kyle is at the end of the day. And
I think it's just the salary. Like if he's making $15 million, I think every team is knocking on the door.
Sure,
or $20 million.
But you
got to match these salaries.
You're sending fillers anyway, so the salary isn't the biggest of deals. Now, again, that kind of Miami, for example, can't send Dragic to Toronto because Dragic has basically a no
because he just signed a contract
trade.
this year.
Well, I think he has a no trade, so he can nix any deal. So at the end of the day, that was put in there. So he probably would not have taken that deal to Toronto. So that inhibits a lot of contenders. And the Lakers, to me, they weren't going to send Schroeder to Kyle because to me that's at best a similar move, or it doesn't make him any better.
You don't think it makes them any better just for this season?
If you got to send, like for example, if you got to send in, I think they were thinking about Schroeder, and then you have they probably would have wanted Taylor Horton, and again, that's a guy that looks like he has some decent potential. I don't know how much that. Again, to me, maybe the Lakers, as Shannon Sharp would say, he would have packed Kyle Kuzma's bags if it was Kuzma and something else, and probably gone Lowry because Kuzma's a little bit of an enigma in LA is the best word.
But let's say that you could package in theory Schroeder and Kuzma for Kyle.
I don't think.
You think LeBron would not sign off on that deal?
I don't think that makes the Lakers better at this stage at Kyle's age. I think
for this season,
I think Schroeder's a different type of player. The way that the Lakers play, I think that he fits that system better than Kyle. That's just me personally.
I strongly disagree.
I like Schroeder. I think Schroeder's still
young.
I
like him too, but he's not Kyle Lowry. He's not the shooter Kyle is.
And again,
he's not the defender Kyle is.
Kuzma at the end of the day is a guy that could. And when he's on his day, he's a bucket, but when he's off, he's really bad.
Just like every other six man, I guess, right?
I don't know if that would have technically made the Lakers all that better.
I was talking with Zane. I'm going to shout out Zane. So me and Zane were talking about this, and he goes, if AD's healthy with LeBron, okay? And this is obviously right away a big question mark because both guys are out. And they were to swap, even just Schroeder for Lowry straight up. He goes, would you not argue that it's their title to lose? I said, I would bet my money. If they get Kyle Lowry, you have AD healthy and LeBron healthy with Kyle Lowry as their third guy. And you still have Harrell and all and everybody else coming off the bench. I think they're all not a lock, but I think that I would bet my money on the Lakers to win.
So and that's the thing, and it's a situation where Kyle hasn't been in that position. Where Kyle tends to want to be the primary ball handler, and with LeBron he wouldn't be that. So I think
he'd handle it at least 40% of the time, at least.
That's
40
to 50. That's still significant.
But even then, he plays off ball with Fred.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time.
I know that you're not a Kyle guy.
I'm not.
But you're also thinking about a guy who you are a fan of, LeBron, who has
So I think Schroeder's a better shooter.
I think that's one thing he's not.
You think that Kyle's a better shooter?
I think Kyle's a better shooter. He's going to get more open looks there. He can play within his means. He doesn't have to do too much because It's the Lakers and LeBron and AD are
I,
going to get so much of
again,
the attention.
at this stage, at 35, I don't know.
I'm just saying, you're going on a playoff run. I'm not talking about next year,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know.
I don't need to
I like
convince you.
Schroeder.
I like Schroeder
I like
too.
Schroeder. To me, and again, if you added in Kuzma in there, I don't know. But as I said, Kuzma
Even just straight
was
up.
very much an enigma.
He didn't play in the playoffs really last year.
He played, but he was terrible. So it was one of those things.
Caruso was ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah,
and now Horton Tucker is too.
Caruso's always the guy. I always think that he's played at LA
YMCA.
Fitness, those rec leagues. But hey, you know what? He's been good.
He was
pretty
good last year in the bubble too.
So again, so you think that would have been a minimum lock, just adding Kyle to that Lakers roster, eh?
With those guys healthy, yeah.
Even with the problem that they have with no real center. Yeah. Well, I guess
they didn't play a center in the finals last year, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I mean, maybe I'm just something the guy that thinks that Kyle Lowry put the team over the top, but maybe.
But he's the third guy.
But with LeBron,
maybe.
LeBron, but
that's what I'm saying.
Probably.
He's not. So you okay? We'll wrap this up. And we'll wrap this up.
Okay,
now, I've heard time and time again when LeBron can play with a bag of tricks, and he's gonna. Yes. So you have AD. Arguably the best at his position in the league, right? And when he's healthy, two-way guy, better than Giannis.
Okay.
They won a title. You're giving Kyle Lowry to this team, who right now, as it stands, Schroeder's been a six-man his whole career. He's starting now because LeBron he wanted to not tax himself.
Fair enough.
Kyle's an established starter.
Sure.
A better defender.
Yes, I would agree.
He's a much better man-on-man defender. So you're improving your defense, and you're improving. This is the guy that runs an offense.
Yeah.
Schroeder's never been an all-star in his life. We can talk about how he's going on a run right now because he's playing for a contract.
Like I said, if Lowry was younger, I would say it's a definite no-brainer. But I guess if it's just for the single
But how much
year,
worse has Lowry really got? He's taking less shots.
He's
never been an explosive guy.
I guess I would have to. I'd have to lament that for a 1 year situation.
Are you giving in finally?
I would give in. I probably would take out. Now that I think about it, and considering you're making good points, and like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Kyle, so maybe I probably want to give him the credit that maybe he deserves at times. But I again for a 1 year situation and stuff like that. Then I still think the Lakers play in a way that Lowry's not used to. But
it's not like they're playing an up and down style like. Who plays that in the playoffs? It's really slowed down. The Lakers tend to play a little bit of a half court game at times. And in the playoffs, it's always half court. Everybody's getting back on defense.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess.
Igor's on the train.
Fair enough.
All right, guys.
So it didn't happen anyway, so I guess figuratively,
but I think that it would have been a good deal for them. I don't like to give the Lakers or LeBron too much credit, but
we know that. We know that.
But I think that they would have benefited. So Raptors are going on a bit of a run now. I know that they a stretch here where they have Portland on Saturday, which would be interesting because it's going to be a quick one.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Sunday. So Friday they have the Suns. Suns didn't make any deals. Been one of the best teams in basketball all year. Sleeper to get to the West Final. And then
wide open in the West.
And then the Trailblazers on Sunday.
So that'll be right norm right there, right?
A quick test, right? And it's in Tampa that game. And then you got Pistons, Thunder, two trash teams.
So are they gonna give Norm the whole thing in Tampa? In Tampa? That's so what do you do?
Nothing. You do it in Toronto next year.
That's kind of
right?
weird.
You're gonna do it in a different city. You're not gonna do it right away.
It kind of takes it away when it isn't the first time, but I guess so.
Yeah. Well, who knows when it's gonna be next year too. And then you got the Warriors. Steph should be back by then. That's next Friday. Wizards, Lakers, Bulls, Cavs, Knicks, Hawks, Spurs, Magic, Thunder.
Well, the Wizards,
so it's a bit of like
the Wizards and then the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers should be a W considering that they got nobody at this point. But
so we'll go through like 10 games quick and we'll wrap it up. Suns, you gotta think is probably gonna be a loss. The Blazers, I would say, is a 60-40, 55-45 game. They'd be dogs, but they're at
Bosnia Beast is gonna eat, right?
First game back too. First game back.
No, he's back Friday. He's back tomorrow.
Okay, so that'll be his second.
Supposedly he's in great shape.
Everybody's supposedly in great shape.
I hope he's in great shape. I need him for the fantasy run.
Pistons should be a win. Thunder should be a win. Warriors 50-50. Wizards should win. Lakers.
They're gonna be the Lakers are terrible without LeBron.
I think the Lakers are gonna win tonight. Bulls is gonna be a tough one. Cavs should be a win, but they just lost big time.
They just lost. Like Colin Sexton was trash talking them.
He's been a Nets and Raptors killer. And then Hawks, Spurs, Magic, Thunder. So it eases off a bit. So the Raptors, I guess they're
Spurs are in an interesting situation. I don't even know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing.
They don't seem to be very committed to keeping DeMar past this season.
Yeah.
Aldridge is not playing, so I don't know what they're doing.
They're trying to do a youth movement with those guys. And to be honest,
what the heck was the point of bringing DeMar back? What's the point? I don't get it.
Like bring him back for the season, not trade him.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure they it was the
It was an opt-in?
was it a team option last year to bring him back? I'm pretty sure they might just let him go because he's probably gonna bounce anyways this year because they're not looking like they want to keep. They didn't trade him.
But I guess the theme of this
There's
whole
a guy that could have
the
gotten
theme
something.
of the theme of the trade deadline has been that a lot of guys are not going for what you would think they'd go for, right?
And
A lot of guys can't even be traded.
Could you imagine if they had traded Lowry for DeMar? That would have been my freaking. I would have had a field day with that one.
Would
Can
you like
imagine?
that?
Oh my god, I would have had a field day. Just the amount of jokes I could have pulled on that one. Like, imagine that now all of a sudden DeMar comes back and Kyle gets jettisoned. I saw a post, and we argued about this. Well, we didn't argue. We had a little bit of. So, if DeMar stays and Kyle is DeMar the greatest Raptor of all time? Like,
If he wins the title, so if they trade him for
but here's the thing. So if he wins the title, so like I said, the fact that the man got elevated, being a third or fourth situation, all of a sudden to greatest Raptor because he won a championship, being on the coattails of other guys, it just kills me. That makes absolutely no sense.
I talk about this with soccer all the time.
Absolutely
guys that
no
win
sense.
like a World Cup or guys that win a Champions League.
That makes no sense. Where a guy gets into a greater thing while not being the guy in a situation. That's like me saying that Portugal won the Euros and I should be praising Eder as the star.
But that's
of the
what I
team
was gonna say.
because
right?
he scored one
Because
goal.
He scored a big goal.
He scored one goal.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So Kyle at the end of the day was a backseat driver. He didn't even ride shotgun. He was on the back seat.
I think it was the game 6 that he had. He had a big game 6.
Fantastic first half. Fantastic first half.
Hats off to him.
Hats off to him.
Yeah.
He had a first quarter. He was going crazy. Hats off to him. But we got to be honest here. He was a backseat driver, and somehow that elevates a guy.
It's
Here we go.
the game.
And I will give you credit. But remember the Draymond Green shot that got blocked and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And Kyle's been a very good defensive player. I can't even deny that.
Yeah.
There's been, and again, it all goes back to the Cleveland. We're gonna rumble, scores 5 points. I'll never forget. I've been traumatized by Kyle Lowry, and that's what it is.
He haunts your dreams.
It doesn't haunt my dreams, but it's these kind of situations where I can't deal with some of this stuff, and that I'll never forget that. That has been 3-4 years, and I still have not forgotten that quote.
The rumbling.
We gotta come out tomorrow and we gotta rumble, and then he scores 5 points. I can't with that. And that's what I think that's what did it right there. That's the game where I was absolutely done with Kyle Lowry.
Okay, guys. Igor's off. Igor is off. Kyle Lowry is the greatest Raptor of all time. Based on longevity, he has to be. And we've debated this time and time again with Lamar.
The what do you got? The longest of all time, or whatever you want to call it.
Longest tenured Raptor of all time. The longest
tenured Raptor, whatever. And again, give the man a lifetime achievement award. I got no problem with that. He stuck around. He was loyal. For the most part, I still think that he would have gone a couple of years ago.
The highest bidder. The
Spurs,
that's right.
The Spurs gave him some decent change, but whatever. It is what it is.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today, March 25th. We did a trade deadline. Of course, we talked about LeBron and Kyle Lowry, as we do all the time. We'll see you guys next time on The Walk.
Oh, man. That's jokes. Well, CJ did another 30-point game. Some guy dropped him in